Hi, everyone. I'm Rena Nine, and thank you for joining us. We began with controversy following President Donald Trump as he spends the Thanksgiving holiday with his family at his home in Florida. The president arrived late Tuesday, but not before igniting an avalanche of headlines back in Washington. First, lawmakers are pushing back now after the president reaffirmed his alliance with Saudi Arabia and its crown prince, despite the CIA assessment that he ordered the killing of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The president questioned the U.S.'s own intelligence and argued there were economic benefits to the relationship that shouldn't be jeopardized. Meanwhile, the New York Times released a new report that the president wanted to order the Justice Department to prosecute Mr. Trump's political rival, Hillary Clinton, and former FBI Director James Comey. However, White House counsel urged against it, saying such a move would have consequences. And all this as we're learning that the president's own daughter, Ivanka Trump, was using a personal email address for government business while serving as senior advisor in the Trump administration. House lawmakers are seeking answers. And there's a new development in the Mueller investigation. President Donald Trump's legal team has submitted answers by the president to special counsel. It comes as more indictments may be on the horizon. Joining us now to break it all down, Zeke Miller. He's a White House reporter for the Associated Press and, of course, a CBSN political contributor. Welcome, Zeke.
Good to be here.
I want to start with Saudi Arabia. It's interesting to hear the pushback from lawmakers. You know, Senator Corker tweeted this out. I never thought I'd see a day that White House would moonlight as a public relations firm for the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And then there's incoming Senator Mitt Romney, who called it inconsistent with enduring foreign policy and with our national interests, with basic human rights, and with American greatness. What action do you expect lawmakers to take in January?
It's not a whole lot for them to do. They can try to block arms purchases or things like that. But that's, there's a very high bar for Republican lawmakers, Democratic lawmakers, Congress in general in this space. Foreign policy is generally in the realm of the president. And what's kind of striking here is these lawmakers, they're not so much fighting over their U.S. relationship with Saudi Arabia. They're fighting over the way the president is casting it. The U.S. has always been comfortable making these sort of devil's bargains with foreign powers who they have no choice but to deal with. And what's striking here, the president does it without any shame when it comes to issues like human rights, in this case, the freedom of the press. So that's the tension there. It's not like it is a very concrete issue for them to object to. It's more of the president's moral philosophy, the way that he casts America's moral authority on the world stage. You
know, yesterday the president kept insisting that he had no financial ties to Saudi Arabia. He kept repeating this over and over again. Why does he keep bringing that up?
Well, he's very sensitive to the notion that he does have these business ties to foreign leaders, and certainly, he might have direct ties, and there were attempts by the Trump organization to open up properties in Saudi Arabia. When the Crown Prince visited the United States, earlier this year on sort of his world tour, he was staying at Trump property for part of it. So there's an element here where there are close ties, and the president does have he sees personal interest in his relationship with the Crown Prince, but also sort of common cause with Saudi Arabia when it comes to Iran, when it comes to all these other things. So the president just doesn't want to deal with the murder of a journalist by allegedly orchestrated by the Saudi Crown Prince, because he has all these other issues he wants to deal with them with.
You know, you see European allies, Angela Merkel, for instance, of Germany, coming forward saying we're not going to push forward arms sales because of this. And yet you see the president working with leaders and praising Putin, Kim Jong-un, Mohammed bin Salman, as we've been talking about it. What does it say about America's priorities under this White House?
It really is as simple as what the president campaigned on in 2016. From his view, it's America first, period, full stop, or exclamation point, like we saw in that statement yesterday. It's what is in the economic interest of the United States, what is in the geopolitical interest of the United States. It's a lot less of this city on the hill. The United States has had no choice but to deal with unsavory actors in the past, but there's always an element of shame felt by American leaders when they're doing it. The president is proud of this relationship, proud of the way that he is holding up America first, America's economic security with these arms deals, with geopolitical security when it comes to countering Iran, human rights and other things, be damned, essentially. When it came to North Korea as well, the president did not really raise human rights concerns with Kim Jong-un because he's trying to deal with the nuclear issue. That had been something that his predecessors had also put on the table for those sorts of negotiations. The president sort of wants to deal with the big ticket item and leaves sort of the America's moral authority often by the wayside.
I want to switch gears for a second and ask you about this New York Times report that says the president was actually warned against ordering an investigation into Comey and Clinton, and warned by his attorneys this could be looked at, viewed as an abuse of power. You know, a number of occasions we've seen just on his Twitter account that he's called for investigations. Why is this report so controversial?
No, exactly right. It's not shocking the president wanted to investigate James Comey and Hillary Clinton. You know, he talked about investigating Hillary Clinton all through his presidential campaign. What's kind of astonishing here are the lengths to which his own aides, his senior advisors, the people who he hired because he trusts their advice and counsel, had to go in order to convince him that this was a terrible idea, a terrible precedent, and potentially some sort of thing that put him in legal and political jeopardy. That they had to get the counsel's office to draft a memo and brief the president all the different ways this was a really terrible idea, and that this wasn't sort of dead on arrival after the first tweet. It really does get a sense of a window into how the president's White House is run, and sort of how it often takes a concerted effort by the people around him to take him, sort of move him off a really bad idea, even when they're ostensibly there for him to trust them.
Speaking of White House counsel, Don McGahn pushed back, but the thing is, Don McGahn's no longer in the White House counsel. Do you get the sense that White House aides are still concerned over this issue on how to keep the president from going after his opponents in a way that could really pose a great deal of legal jeopardy?
Less so when it comes to the Justice Department. Talking to White House officials over the last couple of days, they think that the warnings on that front have really resonated with the president, particularly now the Democrats are set to take control of the House come January 3rd. It becomes a lot easier for the House to initiate not just impeachment at the far end, but things like oversight investigations, abuse of power investigations, and the like. So he's certainly a lot more sensitive of the political and the legal jeopardy he can place himself in. That said, often when it comes to policy proposals, when it comes to deal making, international relations, often there still requires a team effort on the part of the president's aides to sort of convince him off an idea he has his mind set on.
There's a lot of questions still surrounding Ivanka Trump using her personal email. A lot of comparisons to Hillary Clinton. The White House has pushed back against those comparisons. Can we expect in January a bipartisan group of lawmakers to look into this? And what can really come? If Hillary Clinton didn't face any criminal charges, what could come of investigating Ivanka Trump?
Well, bipartisan investigation of the email investigation, something that close to, essentially of the president's daughter, seems highly unlikely to see that really come into fruition. And there's not a whole lot that Congress can really do here. This is an ethics investigation that would have to be carried out through proper channels on the White House side. And the White House has basically said, she was wrong in what she did, but she ultimately complied with it. And generally, ethics probes when it comes to emails and things like that don't really amount to much, as we saw with Hillary Clinton. And this is not at the same level as Hillary Clinton. There's really no evidence that there was a classified email on there, and that she ultimately did switch to a White House email account. So it's a little bit of apples to oranges there. This is a political problem more than a legal problem for Ivanka Trump and for the White House.
Before you go, I want to ask you, though, we know the president has submitted his answers to the special counsel, Robert Mueller. What are you looking for? What can we expect in the coming weeks?
Well, the first is, will we ever get a peek at that? Will we get a sense from the president, from his attorneys, what he answered? What was Robert Mueller asking the president specifically? And just how cooperative was the president? How detailed was he in his answers? What did he reveal to the special counsel that the special counsel didn't already know? Did he potentially offer an account that differed from the accounts offered by the president's senior aides who've cooperated with the special counsel's investigation so far? That's sort of one bundle. The second is, where do we go from here? What does Robert Mueller do next? There are indications that maybe he's trying to bring this investigation to a close at some point, issuing some sort of report. Is this the final barrier that he needed in order to do that? Or does he want to talk to the president, face to face, and potentially go down the path of issuing a subpoena to get the president to do that, and setting up a whole new other legal fight? Or so that really is sort of the two fronts. Will we learn what the president said, and then does Robert Mueller still want to keep talking to the president? That's what we're looking for.
Zeke Miller, are you staying in town for Thanksgiving?
Yes, I am. Looking forward to it. Yeah.
All right. So you don't have to fly on a plane at this point.
I took the train up here from D.C., which
best way to go.
Yeah.
Zeke, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for joining us. Absolutely.